All right, so a couple of announcements before we get started, everyone. First of all, TechU, as you probably all have heard, IBM TechU University that was scheduled for May 18th in Orlando. I put canceled in here, but it's not really canceled. It's actually deferred to merge with the October TechU that is in Atlantic City. If you actually registered for that and you have some questions, you can email this little thing here. This is on the Power Systems wiki site, so you can email them with any questions that you have. They are doing a series of TechU talks. They're running from April 7th into July. There's a link here on the wiki for that schedule, and you can go to that link. You can look at the schedule. They have power, a list of power, a list of storage, and a list of IBM or Z topics. And so go through, you can look through that list of talks, and you can register for them individually, all right? Also, the other comment or thing that I want to mention here is Help Systems does a AIX community survey every year, and they are having the webinar to talk about that survey. And so the webinar is April 2nd, and I have a little link here. I should have put that it's April 2nd here, but it's April 2nd, and there's a little link here on the wiki where you can register to attend that webinar if you want to see things that came out in the survey. So Petra Burr and Dylan Baudet, a couple IBMers that are doing the big into the AIX stuff, as you know, they're going to be on there with the Help Systems, and you can listen to them and see what the AIX community survey showed. So with that, I think I'm done talking about that kind of stuff. The presentation materials for today are on the wiki as well. You can see down here. For some reason, the wiki isn't doing colors very well today, but there's a link to the presentation materials. And we are recording, and when our session's done, probably, hopefully by tomorrow sometime, and I get the recording all downloaded and formatted and uploaded, I'll put a link in the same place to the replay for today. All right. If you have questions when we get started, you can put them in the Q&A pane, please. I know there's a chat pane and a Q&A. If you put them in the Q&A, then I only have one place to look. If you want to chat with people and not really ask a question, go ahead, put whatever you want in the chat pane. But I'll be looking mostly in the Q&A pane. All right. Let me see if I got everything here. I think so. So our topic today, live partition mobility, simplified remote restart, LPM SRR, and two topics that have been around for a while, two features that have been around for a while. Last I did the survey, a lot of people are using LPM, and I just don't know why anybody wouldn't use LPM if you got multiple machines set up that way. It's just such a great tool, and SRR as well. So we have Bob Foster today that's going to tell us a little bit about those, what's new, what's different, just kind of give an overview and an update on those two features. Bob's with our lab services. Bob's also going to talk about a tool that lab services provides. Just when we get to that, you know, live partition mobility comes with Enterprise Edition. We basically give Enterprise Edition to everybody these days. But this tool is different. The tool comes from lab services. So don't misunderstand that the tool is included with these things, and just so you just want to be clear, and when we get to that, Bob, I think we need to mention again, this tool comes out a little bit differently and what you need to do to get the tool, okay? It's not just the free thing that comes with everything else. All right, so with that, though, I'm just going to turn it over to Bob. He's been around a long time. He's talked to us before. So welcome, Bob, and with that, I'll stop sharing here, and I'll make you the presenter.
Hey, Joe. Thank you very much. So, yeah, my name is Bob Foster, and I am in lab services. Prior to being in lab services, I was the HMC architect, and I actually wrote a lot of the specs for live partition mobility back in 2003 and 2004. So I very much pay attention to this space quite a bit. And so I want to spend a lot of time today talking to you just about LPM and simplified remote restart. There's a lot of things that have changed in the last 2 or 3 years, and nothing's in one spot. Well, this presentation here probably captures a lot of the stuff into one spot, so you'll be an SME by the end of this session. So we'll go through the charts. Joe did mention I will talk about the tool, but I'm going to talk about the tool toward the very end and not spend too much time on that, but I want to share with you a lot of this LPM and simplified remote start stuff. And Joe, I'm still getting I hear some people in the background.
Yeah, let me see what I can do about that.
Okay, fantastic. So I have an agenda here. We're going to just jump right into it. I put them in some broad categories. We could easily have a sub-agenda on each one of these, but we're just got some really high-level agenda here. So oops, I have to click that button. Okay, so let's talk about live partition mobility first. So customers that know VMware, and a lot of customers know VMware, there's something called vMotion. Well, live partition mobility is just like vMotion. Okay, so people that are very familiar with VMware just now understand exactly what LPM is. The rest of us that don't understand what it is or know about it or heard about it is that basically on the left here you have a server, that's that dark frame with different colors in it, and those little boxes inside that frame are LPARs. You can move an LPAR or a partition. I'll use both words interchangeably throughout this, LPAR partition, from one server to another server. So, a lot of people do this. And in fact, at the bottom of this chart, I went and looked through some statistics, and I know that we've done over 150 customers around the world have done over 150,000 LPM in the last year. So that is a snap of what's done. There's probably a lot more done. It's just this is all that we can sort of project from what we see. So I suspect that number is closer to 200,000, but customers use this all the time. I have customers that do LPM every night because they want to do workload balancing. It's not their production as much as it's in their dev and their QA environments. They like to LPM every night and rebalance how busy their servers are. Another big use of LPM is if you have to do maintenance, you want to update your firmware and your VIOS. You don't want to do that with your LPARs on that frame, so you move all your LPARs off of a frame. And then one thing that when we first came out with this product back in 2003, we started working on it in 2003. It came out in 2007 or 8. It took a while to get this working. People also, when they buy new Power 9 servers, they want to move all the workload from Power 8 to Power 9 or Power 7 to Power 9, and they use LPM to move everything over live. So there's, and now that we've gone through 3 or 4 generations of Power 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, LPM is just instrumental to our customers moving to new hardware. So when did this come out? It came out 12 years ago. Joe mentioned it. It is included with your Power VM Enterprise Edition. So as Joe said, all new systems have that. Some people, they have Power 7s may not spot it back then. But, the good news is, let's say you had a Power 7 and you wanted to LPM to your new Power 9s. You can actually get a temporary license to enable LPM on your Power 7 so you can move all your workload to Power 9. So let's say you're listening to this presentation, you go, hey, I'm getting some Power 9s in later this year. I got these Power 7s, but I forgot to buy Enterprise Edition, but I want to LPM them over to the new frame. You can get a temporary license for free from IBM to do that. So that's an important point that I actually didn't put in this chart because I just thought of that, but multiple customers have done that in the past. In the middle, you can see that you can move from different servers. So Power 6, which is a quite old hardware, you can only go between Power 6, 7, and 8. Now, Power 7 is sort of interesting. That second bullet, it can go down to Power 6 and go into Power 8 or up to Power 9. So Power 7 can go down or all the way up the ladder. The same with Power 8. The Power 8 can go all the way down to the bottom or up to the top. And then Power 9 can't go all the way down to Power 6. So what IBM has done is that we will only support 3 levels, 2 downs, and as many ups as we want to. So That's why you see the Power 7 and 8 being able to go down to the 6 still, but Power 9 can't go down to Power 6. And at this bottom, this is sort of what this whole chart deck is about. LPM has been enhanced over the last, 12 years. And I remember when it first came out, it took a long time to move an LPAR. And, of course, our LPARs, we now have SAP HANA LPARs. They have, 5, 10 terabytes of memory, and we're moving those in our customer environments. And so thinking of doing that 12 years ago would have been incomprehensible, but there have been so many improvements over the years. We are able to, continually adapt to these much larger workloads and LPM them between frames. So what are the requirements? So this is where customers are going to go, wow, I didn't design this like this. But basically, you have to have, in a nutshell, you have to have your partitions virtualized. That means they're using the VIOS for their network connections and for their SANs and for their tape drives and stuff like that. So it has to be virtualized. And so this sort of top part is saying, yeah, you got to be able to go from, you're on to P6, you want to go to P8, you got to make sure that we have that those levels are compatible. And so we just showed in the previous chart that P6 can go up to P8, but P7 can go down and up. So that's sort of what this first bullet is. You have to be compatible. And we've been doing this for so long, almost everything's compatible with everything, because this has had to be that flexible. We had to design for a Power 7 6 years ago to be able to LPM over to a Power 9. So that we built this a long time ago to make sure to be able to go in between anything we want to. The other thing here is the second bullet is that you have to have the same LANs, the same same network types of connections. And so a lot of customers use VLAN tagging on their shared Ethernet adapters or their SRR type of stuff. And so if you're on one system, your VLAN tag 100, you need to make sure you have a VLAN tag 100 on your destination system. That's sort of what that second bullet is that, we can't magically convert your IP address as you transfer during LPM. If you want to use LPM and you have different networks, you actually do what's called an inactive LPM. You shut down the LPAR, you use LPM to move it over and all the disk attachments and all that kind of stuff, and then you boot up the LPAR and you change your IP address and you're up and happy and running again. So if you don't really have to, you can use inactive partition mobility to do stuff if you have different networks. So customers do that. They completely change their network on P9, but they still want to use the LPM when they got 100, 200 LPARs. They want to use LPM to get it over there, and then they log in and change IP addresses. And these last two bullets are, what's going to have to be virtualized, and you have to have access to your disk. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Most people have virtualized their workloads, and there's red books written about all that stuff. But just for those who are saying, hey, I'm not really familiar about LPM, can I do it today? Oh, well, no, I have this dedicated Ethernet adapter that I've attached to this big LPAR. That's not a virtualized LPAR. That's got a dedicated adapter in it. So now let's talk about what I just mentioned about inactive and active partition mobility. So the term is called live partition mobility, and this is, and we could go back in our time machine, we would not use the word live, because this has confused so many people over the years. It's really partition mobility. We can move these partitions, and we can move them when they're up and running, which is what a lot of people think live means. So that's called, that first bullet here, active partition mobility. It's where we do a running LPAR. It's up and running from one machine to another. And I sort of talked about why you might use active partition mobility in that little bullets there. I'm not going to talk about that. So, but a lot of people say, oh, live partition mobility means I can only move the partition when it's up and running. Well, that's not the case at all. So there's also inactive partition mobility, which is where you can transfer the partition when it's powered off. And that's once again where, let's say you had different LAN connections and you're going to change your LAN network on your Power 9. You're going to shut down the partition. You're going to use the live partition mobility features to move an inactive partition. And so this is, so don't be confused that live, the partition has to be up and running. You can move a partition when it's also shut down. And so we don't really talk about active partition mobility and inactive partition mobility much more throughout this presentation. I'm just going to sort of say if the partition's running, you need to worry about this. If a partition is powered off or shut down, you should worry about this. So I'll see if I can try to use active and inactive, but I think most people understand running and not running a little bit better. Okay, so that was a high level on LPM. Now let's talk about high level on SRR. So SRR stands for Simplified Remote Restart. This came out on our Power 8 servers, and it's on our Power 9 servers. And this picture is supposed to show you that someone has taken your server, and that's what's on fire in the middle of this picture. They've thrown it out the window, it's caught on fire, and you had 100 partitions on there running, and of course that system's on fire, those partitions have crashed, and you now need to get those partitions back up and running while the fire department comes out and puts out the fire and everything else. And you get IBM to bring you a new server in, and they'll stand it up as quick as they can, but you can't wait, 2 days for us to bring a new server or something else. So you need to get these partitions up and running. Until Simplified Remote Restart came out, you couldn't do anything. You were just having to wait for us to fix this frame. Well, with Simplified Remote Restart, we can now restart those LPARs that are on this server that's on fire on other frames or systems in your data center. So this is a big deal. I'm glad we finally got this out there. This is really important. I talk to customers all the time, and I work with customers on remote restart all the time. And I've had some customers come to me, months later saying, thank goodness we got this set up, because we indeed did have a frame outage, and we were able to remote restart some very important LPARs while we were waiting for the frame to be repaired. So this is a great feature, and it's available on your P8s and P9s, and it's very simple to set up. So let's go to the next page. It came out in fall of 2014 on your Power 8 server, so that's been out almost 6 years. It's also included with the Power VM Enterprise Edition. Okay. Now, one thing you have to, I like to point out this third paragraph. Over the years, IBM has done multiple remote restart technologies, and those previous versions were not simple to implement. And we have tens of thousands, about 50,000 or more customers around the world, and we didn't have 20 customers implement this stuff. So it was very hard to implement. Customers just didn't use it. And so finally, on Power 8 and Power 9, we said we got to make this easier. And so they came out with Simplified Remote Restart, and that's why they had that S in front of that RR, because they want you to know it really is simple. And basically all you have to do is click on a checkbox on the HMC GUI to enable remote restart. That's all you got to do. It's as easy as that. Just click a box on the general properties of your LPAR, and you'll see Simplified Remote Restart, and you click it, and you're able to remote restart going forward. I have here, this is not set by default. The remote restart is not set by default. You need to enable it on all your LPARs that you care about. I tell my customers to enable all LPARs. It doesn't hurt to enable all LPARs. And then if you did have an outage, just move the LPARs that are most important to you. But at least you have that flexibility. If you try to keep track, we're not going to enable some here, we'll enable others here. You'll get confused on which ones you've enabled or not enabled. Enable all of them. And remote restart works with partitions that can be LPM. So this is the hook here, is that if you have a partition that you cannot LPM because it's not completely virtualized, you cannot make that remote restartable. Remote restart uses LPM technology. So your LPAR has to be LPM capable, completely virtualized, for remote restart to work. So once again, most customers, of course, I only talk to customers about LPM and SSR, so all their LPARs are completely virtualized. So they got that covered. But if you have some customers aren't fully virtualized, you will not be able to use remote restart. And here's the checkbox here. This came out on the first enterprise level servers of Power 8. That was 820 firmware and higher. So, excuse me. There are some 810 low-end frames out there that I just got an email yesterday with a customer that had an 810, and he wanted to use remote restart. I said you got to get up to at least the 860 is the latest firmware on the Power 8. So just put on the 860, you're good. And it's been on the HMCs for a long time, and on the VLS levels for a long time, and all Power 9. So you got a Power 9 or you got any of these Power 8, you should be able to see this checkbox on your properties of your partition and click it. And when you click it, you're going to see that at the bottom, you're going to see the state is happy. It says remote restartable. It's got those two arrows chasing each other like a dog chases a tail. That means if that state doesn't say remote restartable, you can click on that little circular arrows, and it'll refresh the data that the HMC needs to make it remote restartable. Let's see if I have, let me go back one more here. So I did not include one chart because I didn't like it, but I'll explain it. Basically, the way you can do remote restart is that when you do live partition mobility, remember remote restart is a subset of live partition mobility. When you do live partition mobility, the HMC queries the VIOSs for some metadata. Well, when your frame is on fire in the street, that VIOS is crashed along with all the LPARs. So the HMC cannot query the metadata for an LPAR. So what remote restart does is it queries that metadata from the VIOS and saves it on the HMC hard file. And you can actually see this in the subdirectories of /data on the HMC, your remote restartable data. So if the HMC doesn't like this data or thinks this data is stale, this little chart here will not have the green happy remote restartable. It'll have a different arrow in there, and or different status, and you want to click that and refresh that. So you're refreshing the data on the HMC's hard file. So that's what Simplified Remote Start is. We're going to cache the metadata, and so when the frame crashes, we can still do LPM activities because we have the VIOS metadata that we normally need to do LPM with. Okay, so now I have one chart on other high availability features, and I bring this up because I do get this quite asked a lot. What are all these different HA products? And I am not an expert on Power HA or these things below, but I have made it simple for me to understand, so hopefully you can understand too. So we just talked about Simplified Remote Restart, that very top thing. Partition crashes, and we can relocate or move that LPAR to another server. This is mainly within a data center. If you want to work across different data centers, you need to have a stretched LAN and a stretched SAN to be able to either LPM across two different data centers or remote restart. Remember, remote restart is a subset of LPM. So if you can LPM across different data centers, so you have a stretched LAN and a stretched SAN, you will be able to remote restart across data centers. That's what remote restart is. Then you have something called Power HA, which is our second major bullet here. This is a separately purchased product from IBM, and you group LPARs into cluster within or across data centers. Oracle Rack, some customers know Oracle Rack very well, is also an HA. They have multiple LPARs that are in a cluster on different servers, maybe across data centers, and they also work as a cluster, and when one goes down, the other one comes up. So that's what that third bullet, one of the partition in the cluster crashes, the other LPARs continue to work. So that's Power HA. Okay, so an HA has been around a long, long, long time. Now we have these other things that you've seen recently, like the Power VM Recovery Manager. Once again, a separately purchased product. And this uses LPM technology and remote restart technology, so they're using some of the same functions that we're talking about here to build this product. They also have a lot of other back-end logic and stuff in there to help do this for you. And it's, once again, normally within a data center that you use Power VM Recovery Manager. And they're using the LPM technology and remote restart. So you say, I don't use that other stuff, but, you actually are using LPM remote restart for some of these other products. Then the last one is you have the Power VM Recovery Manager DR, and it does the data storage replication across data centers and uses SSR technology to do the restart. So I'm not going to talk much more about this, but if you have some debate with your colleagues, they're saying, well, I think this does that does this. This little chart is sort of a little nutshell on, actually, Power VM Recovery Data Manager does use SSR technology under the covers. So this lets you know about that, because there are multiple products out there from IBM and what the different features are. Okay, let's talk about LPM best practices. So we are going to give you a fire hose of information, and I'm talking a little slow. I'm going to have to go faster when we get done in an hour, so let's go. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking
Bob,
about
you got 90 minutes. You got 90 minutes, so I guess we have an hour from now, right? An hour from now.
Yeah, I think I have 90 charts. I'm only 15 into 90.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so I'm going to spend a lot of time on the MSP here, because this is the most important thing about LPM. So give me 10 minutes to go through these next 4 or 5 charts, and you'll be a pretty good expert on LPM. So MSP is called the Mover Service Partition, and in the middle of this chart, you can see I've circled a GUI panel on a VIOS. So the Mover Service Partition is also the VIOS. And so that's why it's sort of confusing. They both use the word partition, and one's the VIOS partition, and this is the Mover Service Partition. But your VIOS performs your Mover Service activities. And what the Mover Service Partition network is that this is how we move content. How do I want to say it? Let's see, I think I have a better picture. Let's look at this picture. We'll go back to that previous page. So here on the left is your server that you want. You've got a VIOS. You got an LPAR on the left on a server. You want to move it to the server on the right. So what happens? You have a VIOS. This is simplified. Some people have 2 VIOSs, 4 VIOSs, but this is a simple picture. And you need to do LPM. So what's going to happen is the VIOS on the left is going to read the memory contents of the mobile partition, because it's in the memory of the server, and it's going to copy those memory contents over to the server on the right. Well, how does it copy those memory contents? It uses the VIOS, this little yellow line, to copy all the memory contents from the VIOS on the left to the VIOS on the right. So that's the Mover Service Partition. That's the Mover Service Network. That's the Mover Service Function, to copy the data from one frame to the other frame. So, let's go back to the previous page now. So I say it says this is we transfer the data between VIOSs. That's Mover Service Partition traffic. And each VIOS that has this checkbox enabled is a possible MSP route. Most of my customers have just 2 VIOSs on a frame. They check that box on both VIOSs. I have some customers that have 4 VIOSs on a frame. They only check that box on 2 VIOSs. They don't check all 4 VIOSs, but they don't want those other VIOSs to be doing MSP traffic. So this is where each customer on this phone is going to have a different need about how many VIOSs they have and how many MSPs they want to check. Okay, so that's this little overview of what the MSP network is. But I want to, at the very bottom, I want to remind you that when you're doing inactive partition mobility, where the partition is shut down, you don't use an MSP. You're not copying memory contents from the frame on the left to the frame on the right, because the partition shut down. There's no memory to copy. The memory is cleared out. So inactive partition mobility doesn't use the MSP network. It doesn't have to copy memory contents. Therefore, inactive LPM is super fast compared to any time you have to copy memory contents. I went back. So this is the next chart, and I've already talked about this a little bit, but there is a couple notes on the bottom here. The MSP traffic has to flow over an IP address. So, we're using UDP, so I have to have an IP address in the VIOS on the left, and I have to have an IP address on the VIOS on the right to connect this UDP and transfer over compressed and encrypted data. So if you don't have a VIOS and an IP and a VIOS, you don't have an MSP function. Some customers have 5 IP addresses in a VIOS, and theoretically they could use any one of those 5 IP addresses for their MSP traffic. And at the very bottom, we have customers that have 100 gigabit networks between their VIOS. Not very many, but we do have customers that build 100 gigabit networks between their VIOSs just for LPM traffic, and we can LPM over 100 gigabit network near full line speed. So you get some incredible performance when you have a really fast MSP network. So we just talked about MSP networks, and so some customers go, man, I'm not going to be building out my Power 9 for quite a while. I'm not going to be able to get 100 gigabit networks in there or even 40 gigabit networks. What can you do for me now, IBM? Well, in December of 2016, which is in the middle of this chart here, the HMC and the hypervisor on their 860 firmware, which has been out almost 3.5 years now, they enabled dual MSP connections. Well, which is really, so now what they're showing here is that MSP is also a VIOS. So this is where we call it a VIOS and MSP and an MSP a VIOS. You have 2 VIOSs on the frame on the left and 2 VIOSs on the frame on the right, which is what most customers have. And we will now copy the memory contents for the MSP data across both interfaces. So when you updated the 860 firmware, your LPM network speed doubled because all of a sudden we could use both MSPs, both VIOSs on one frame and talk to both VIOSs on the other frame and double our pipe between the 2 frames for LPM. So some customers that may have noticed it goes a lot faster, a couple years ago, it's because they probably upgraded the 860 firmware, and also now they're getting twice the speed they had before, and they may or may not know that was going on under the covers. So this happens automatically for our customers if you're at this 860 or higher or Power 9 frames. Okay, so we're talking about performance. So the MSP, we talked about the MSP network. So once again, I said when a partition is shut down, LPM was super quick, so we don't ever worry about performance hardly at all on an inactive partition mobility. You don't worry about that. But you worry about performance when the partition is up and running. And another factor on the performance of LPM when the partition is up and running is how big is your memory footprint. So if you have an LPAR that's only got 16 gigabits in the memory footprint, gigabytes, you only have to transfer 16 gigabytes across that MSP network. And even on a 10 gigabit network, that only takes, less than a minute to do that. So that's really quick. But if you have a 1 terabyte LPAR and you're trying to transfer that over a 10 gigabit network, you're going to be waiting a long, long, long time for that LPAR to complete. So the MSP network speed is important, and then how large is your LPAR that you're trying to move. And so here I had a couple of estimates of how fast things would go, but basically, if you had a 500 gigabyte LPAR, it can take 7 minutes over a 10 gig network, but if you have a 100 gig network, it takes about 40 seconds. So you can see how much faster things go on a faster network, even for these large LPARs. This is why we can now do terabyte LPARs running SAP HANA with LPM, because we have the ability to drive these much higher speed MSP networks.
Okay. So Bob, a question on
Yeah.
that. If your VIOS has multiple network connections, how does it choose which to use? How do you make sure it's using the faster one?
Okay, we will talk. Basically, it is non-deterministic unless you, the user, tell the HMC what to do. And we will have a chart on that. But this is a big problem with customers that have more than one IP address. They don't realize that the HMC doesn't know their network topology, and the HMC just randomly chooses an IP address. And it could be your slowest IP address or it could be your fastest. So I'll show you how you can choose that on some later charts.
Okay.
But that is someone, whoever asked that question, is paying a lot of attention. That is a serious problem with our customers with multiple IP addresses. And I'm going to talk more about that. So, in fact, here we are right now. Good question. Maybe they read it in advance. So, your VIOS IP config is a very important thing to consider for your LPM. You can get a real performance degradation depending on your environment. So this is exactly the question you guys were asking. When the HMC does the active partition mobility, where it uses the MSP network, it does ping test between all the IP addresses on both the source and target servers. So just like someone just asked, which IP address does the HMC choose to use its LPM over? It doesn't know, but it wants to do a bunch of ping tests to find out what at least networks are they could use. So they're going to give you a choice of networks later on. So this is sort of okay. For quite a few customers, this is not a problem, but for some customers, this is a problem that's got unbelievable consequences to them. So the second bullet is you only had one VIOS pair, only one IP address. We have to do 4 ping tests. We have two IP addresses on the source and 2 on the right, and we do ping test, and that's 2 times 2. That's 4 ping tests. So the ping test is pretty quick. Ping test, those will work great. But this next bullet, some customers have 2 or 3 pairs of VLSs on each server. So if you had 2 pairs and you still only had 1 IP address, now you have 16 ping tests. This is still just 1 IP address, but now you're doing 16 ping tests. Well, ping test is pretty quick. Well, yes, they sort of are, unless you have a non-routable network between some of those IP addresses, and customers do this all the time. They will have 3 or 4 IP addresses on a VLS, and they're not all routable to each other. And so now the HMC is doing all these ping tests, and when it takes 20 seconds for a ping test to time out. And so this little red highlighted, I've seen some customers with so many IP addresses, it's taken over 15 minutes for the ping test to even done. So you're not even doing LPM. You're not doing anything. We're just doing a bunch of ping tests. And so those customers that I've talked to know what I'm talking about because they've lived through this. This is incredible. They want to move 10 LPARs. It takes them, 150 minutes to go through 10, the 10 LPARs, 15-minute timeout on these ping tests. They spend 3 hours just trying to get through the ping test. We're not even moving LPARs. We're spending 3 hours doing stupid ping tests. So you've got to be really careful about how many IP addresses you have. And if you don't specify them, you're going to be going, this ping test happen all the time. Every time you try to do any migration thing, ping test, ping test, ping test, ping test. So, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later. I'll show you the chart, how you choose your ping test. Another thing is that some customers put their VLS IP address on a virtual Ethernet adapter. And this was something that we told customers to do 15 years ago. That was just, you got an SCA, create your own virtual Ethernet adapter, put your IP address on that, and then if your network goes down on this VLS and it's on an SCA, it'll flow over to the other VLS, so there's a virtual adapter, and you'll still have connectivity to your first VLS, even though its hardware adapter died. So we told customers to do that. Well, that's sort of okay. I mean, we always have recommended for the last 7 or 8 years that you do LPM over a non-shared Ethernet virtual Ethernet adapter, but we realize that customers still do this. So, but what happens now is that if you do this, and like I said, quite a few customers do this, you can't take advantage of the dual MSP function, and you should disable it when you're doing LPM. because if you're using dual MSP functions, which is on by default, and you're using a virtual Ethernet adapter, we don't know that they're an SCA connection. So we're going to use both VIOSs. We're going to send stuff to the VIOSs on a virtual Ethernet adapter that's going to route it over to the other VIOS without that one SCA port on that other VIOS. So you don't get the doubling of the MSP traffic when you have an IP address on and you're using that for your MSP traffic, and you're actually probably causing more workload on both your VIOSs than you need to. So you sort of, if you have this type of configuration, you really want to do a single MSP network and disable the dual MSP network. And you can do that once again through the HMC viewing. I'll show you that. So this is, like I said, I still see this in quite a few customers, and I have to explain to them you have to disable the dual to get your best performance. Okay. We just talked about this. So basically what happens is someone asks the question, how do I know what IP address the HMC is going to use when I do an LPM? So on the GUI, after you do a validate, up on the right is going to pop up this MSP pairing that's in this oval on the very bottom of the screen. I'm sorry, it's sort of hard to see. But what happens is it's going to do all those ping tests. So sadly, if you have that poor customer that's got all those IP addresses and takes 15 minutes, this panel will pop up 15 minutes later, and you click on this MSP pairing, and it will pop up a new box. And I don't think I took a picture of that new box because I didn't want the chart to be too long. But that new box then will let you choose which pairing you want to use. And so for the customer that, all of you guys will do a validation today on just any old partition on one frame to another frame, the MSP pairings will be the same for all the LPARs. MSP pairings don't change on an LPAR basis. MSP pairings change on your VIOSs, so it's from one frame to a different frame. And then you click on that, and you'll see how you can choose to either use dual MSPs by checking a box in the top box and checking an IP address in the bottom box. Or if you only want to use single MSP, just check a box in the top box and clear the button in the bottom box. So I don't have a chart on that, Joe, sorry, but check on that. Click on the MSP pairings, and you'll see what the ping test resolved to. Okay, a few other quick suggestions on performance best practices. Move your LPARs when they're not so busy. The LPAR is, most customers don't move production during the middle of the day because they don't have a change ticket, and that partition is super busy. And, every time this page hits 30, we have to resend the page over. And so we keep on dirtying the pages. It takes a lot longer to LPM everything over to the new frame. The other thing is to optimize your network. So we've talked about 10 gigabit networks and 100 gigabit networks and dual MSPs. If you want the top performance, you can also use large send offload and large send receive and jumbo frames. Now, that takes a lot of effort to set up jumbo frames in a customer environment, and you will get better performance. Will you get twice the performance? No. Will you get 50% faster performance? No. Will you get 10% faster performance? Yeah, probably. So that jumbo frames is not going to, that's a lot of work for you to use jumbo frames, and you will get some advantages on performance, but it's not going to be a day and night change. It's going to be 11 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon sunshine, So there'll be some difference, but not a ton. But at the bottom, I try to say performance all about your MSP network, and it really is. It's whether you do ping tests, you have a fast network, et cetera. That's what it's all about. Okay, now we're going to talk about virtual storage. So for LPM and remote restart to work, the ones need to be accessible on the target server. So once again, everything's virtualized. If you have 5 disks that your LPAR sees on your server on the left, you need to see those 5 disks on the server on the right. Okay, now LPM validation is pretty good. It's great for vSCSI, but when it comes to NPIV, we got a little bit of a pothole how we do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Let's go to this next chart. When you're in a vSCSI situation, on the top, you have zoned all your disks to the VIOSs. HVAs. And so when we do a validation on the destination, we can look at those VIOSs and see the lines perfectly. So the zoning's done correctly. You don't have any potholes, nothing to worry about. The only thing you have to worry about is make sure you set no reserve on the HDISC. So that's really the only thing. VSCSI is easier in an LPM environment to use, but it's harder to do day in and day out. Day in and day out, the management of your having to zone all your lines across all your VLSs. But VSCSI zoning, you're cool. If we pass validation, you're good to go, except that you want to double check your no reserve policy. The NPIV is more problematic, and in fact, there's two main problems with all my customers. It's either the RMC connections or it's the NPIV zoning. Guaranteed 90% of all customer LPM problems are RMC or NPIV zoning. 90% of the problems are like that. So when you use NPIV, you create a virtual adapter, and you look at the HMC screen on top. You have two WWPNs, an even number and an odd number. You see that 000 at the end of that number and a 001. That's an even and an odd number. A lot of SAN teams will just zone and mask the even number. They don't zone and mask the odd number. This is the pothole that you're going to hit. You think you have done it correctly because your partition is up and running on the source, and you LPM it over to the destination, and bam, all of a sudden your partition crashes because they didn't properly handle that odd number, okay? So how do you figure out if your SAN team has done the right thing or not? Because you know, they say we did it right, don't worry, Mr. Admin, we got you covered. Well, you don't want to take that chance. So you can actually check your VFC mapping, your virtual fiber channel mapping, your virtual fiber channel and NPIV terms used interchangeably. Once again, the base validation just checks the zoning of the lines. The SAN masking isn't checked. If the masking is incorrect, the LPM will occur, but then the partition will crash. So this is what like I said, this is a big problem. This is the biggest problem other than RMC for LPM. But the good news, you can actually have the masking checked also. You can perform an LPM with the line validation option. You said, oh gosh, I better do that because my SAN team, has changed a lot. I'm not sure if I'm cool about that. There's two ways to do it. In the bottom, there is an article out there on how to configure your VIOSs to do the LUN validation. Now, I just have the link in there. So you're going to go into all your VIOSs on all your frames and set these particular values. And there's three things you have to set, and read that article to see how to set them. The second way you can do it is that there is a command line option on the HMC. So if you write HMC command lines through LPM, you can add this parameter called NPIV val. So it means validate my NPIV mappings. And you can add this to the HMC command line. Sadly, at this point, there's no HMC GUI checkbox that do this function. So you'll have to change all your VIOSs following that article there, or use the HMC command line to do line validation. Now, Joe, a question might pop up or not on that. If it does, let me know. We'll back up a little bit. But to me, this is really important for our NPIV customers that don't do LPM very frequently. Very important. Now, the other issue that happens, and this is for customers that have more than one pair of VIOSs. And I like I said, I work with a lot of customers around the world on LPM, so I see this. This is not an abnormal situation at all. They have a pair for production workloads, a pair for non-prod workloads. Some of them even have 3 or 4 pairs. And so, but what you always find is that everything, all the storage is still in the same SAN storage area, and they're still in the same fabric. It's just that they're just having one pair of VIOSs handle the prod workload, and another pair of VIOSs handle the non-prod workload, but they all end up in the same back-end SAN storage. Well, Live Partition Mobility doesn't know if this is a prod or non-prod LPAR, and this is a prod or non-prod VIOS. So when we do validation, we ask all the VIOSs, both the prods and non-prods, can you host my NPIV? And they all come back yes, but they're all in the same fabric. So now the HMC goes, hey, I got 4 different places to put this workload instead of just 2 places. I got 2 pairs of I got the prod and the non-prod. Well, I'll just flip a coin. I think I'm going to put this one on non-prod. I sure hope this is a non-prod LPAR, but I don't know. That's not my responsibility. It's the customer's responsibility to understand that. The good news is that when you do a validate, up pops this box on the screen that I'm showing you, and it shows you where it's going to route, where it's going to map them. So here you can see it's going to map some of my stuff. I had only 1 pair of VLSs, so this is proper for me. But if you had VLS 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're removing an LPAR that's supposed to be on VLS 1 and 2, you want to make sure that you have checked the box and you're going to VLS 1 and 2, and there's no 3s and 4s in your destination VLSs. So you can manually change that through the pop-up box on the HMC GUI after the validation is done. So good news there, you do have a GUI option to change that mapping if they try to put your non-prod VFC mappings on your prod VLSs or vice versa. And if I've had customers tell me, no, Bob, you're wrong. It put them everywhere. And I said, no, it didn't. Let's run a script. And they go, oh, you're right. It got 70 or 80% of them, but it missed 20% of them. Okay? So you'll go, you may do a spot check after this phone call. Oh, Bob was sort of wrong. I see that they're on the right ones. Yeah, you run a script and check everything across your environment. You'll find that, no, we didn't get it right every time. We get it right a lot of the time, but not all the time. Power Enterprise Pool. Customers have Power Enterprise Pools. There's 2 versions out there, version 1 and version 2. Power Enterprise Pools is also called Capacity on Demand. If you're using PEP 1.0, which has been out for a long time, you'll have to change, manually the customer have to move the CPU memory resources before you do the LPM validates. So that nothing's changing on that. That's the way it's been for the last 3 or 4 years. You still have to do that. When you get to PEP 2.0, you don't have to do that anymore. PEP 2.0 is going to move on. It's going to activate the right resources and deactivate the right resources as you do LPM moves. And since LPM is so important to our product line, when we designed PEP 2, this last bullet, we don't double charge for resources to an LPM. We know that this thing is being LPM. We know that we are using twice the resources, and we're not going to charge you for that. So don't worry if you're at PEP 2.0, will you be double charged? No, we understand LPM like crazy, and we know that customers don't want to be double charged, and it was designed from day one for no double charging when we're doing LPM. So don't worry about that. So PEP 2.0, you don't have to do anything. Just click the button and migrate. PEP 1.0, you're going to have to do your own manual moves of CPU and memory. So that's all this chart's about for now. Okay, exploring the high-speed network. So I've already said before, it's all about this MSP network. But now let's talk about, hey, I have a 100 gigabit network. I really want to drive that 100 gigabit network. How do I do that? Does the HMC and the VIOS do it by default? Nope. You got to give us a hint. You got to tell us that you got a 100 gigabit network, or you have a 20 gigabit network, or you have a 30 gigabit network. You have to give us a hint. And the way that you do that is you set something called the Concurrency Migration Performance Level value. And so this chart talks about a VLS can do 8 LPMs at a time. That's the second bullet. So there's 8 FASI threads in a VLS, and each thread does 1 partitions LPM. Therefore, you do 8 LPMs at a time with this. That's great when you have a slow-speed network. We do that. Well, customers do that all the time. But when you have a high-speed network, you need more than 1 thread to drive that network. You can use up to 4 threads to drive the 100 gigabit network and drive it at close to line speed. But you have to tell us what that means. And so you have to set this concurrent performance migration level number. And for some reason, we said if you set it to 1, that means use 4 threads. You set it to 4, that means use 1 thread. So 4 doesn't mean 4 threads, 1 means 4 threads, and vice versa. And I wrote in here, I don't get paid to make this up. That's the way we designed it. It's completely strange to me, but let's look at these numbers. If you set it to 1, which means use 4 threads, you're on a faster than 30 gigabit network, this very top thing, and you need to have your VLS with at least 3 Power 8 processors. We're driving a 100 gigabit network. We need a lot of CPU power to get that 100 gigabits across that network. So you need to have a VLS that's got at least, VP of 4 or 5 or 6 so that you can use at least 3 CPUs. If you use number 2, which is when you say I want to use the concurrency value of 2, you use 2 threads, I think, or 3 threads. You need at least 2.5 Power 8 processors assigned to your VLS. That's for 28 gigabits. So, and then you go to the next page. If you're not running high-speed network, you're probably down here. You're at 3 or 4. If you have a 20 gigabit network, maybe you have a link aggregation of 2x10s. You would want to use concurrency level of 3 and have at least 2 Power 8 processors assigned to your VLS. And 4 is the default value, and this is what a lot of customers just have 10 gigabit networks. You just leave it at 4. You don't ever change it, and that's fine. So you only have to start worrying about changing this value when you have higher speed MSP networks. If you don't have high-speed MSP networks, a lot of customers don't right now. They just leave it at 4. But I've been working with 5 or 6 customers in the last few months. They're putting 100 gigabit networks in, and we're using a concurrency count of 1 up above. SAP HANA. So we have customers that run SAP HANA, and they have huge memory footprints. They have terabyte memory footprints, and we test up to 20 terabytes at least in our lab, SAP HANA LPM moves. So we really understand SAP HANA is super important, and we have to have LPM work there also. So what we found out was that we could make a slight change to the way the partition is created, to give you much better application performance. So what we found is that we had SAP HANA, we had these 5 and 10 terabyte LPARs we're moving, and the way we handle the page movement is if something gets started, we have to resend it. So we had hooks into some interrupt handlers, and it turns out we were slowing down the SAP HANA because we had too many hooks into these interrupts. So what we decided to do is we decided if you change the partition page table ratio, you no longer have SAP HANA slow down while you're doing LPM. So we saw SAP HANA slow down with the default PPT ratio, and we said, hey, let's change that, see if that helps, because we don't call the interrupt handlers as much, and sure enough, it helped a lot. And we set it to 2048. We tried all different values across the spectrum, and 2048 is a sweet spot. So you want this, if you're running SAP HANA partitions, you need to change the configuration of that SAP HANA to use a PPT ratio of 2048. You go, Bob, how do you do that? Well, here's the next thing. I'm going to get to the next chart. I'm going to show you how to do it. You go up here. You can't do this from the GUI. You have to do it from command line. You have to shut down the partition, change the profile, and then activate the partition with the new profile, or activate the partition with the profile. Don't activate with current settings. Activate with the profile. So this is how you change that. So that's information. SAP HANA people, pay attention to this page and send me an email if you have questions. We did some testing with SAP HANA on a 40 gigabit network, and we had a 1 terabyte LPAR, and it took us about 3 minutes to move it. So, that's on a dual MSP. So and this is a 40 gigabit network. So if you had a 100 gigabit network, it'd take half the time. So, okay. Just a few other ends and a few other pieces of nuggets here. If you don't want an LPM to be moved because it has licensing, it has some sort of unique license to it, you can disable that LPAR to be not LPMable. So maybe you can't tell all your admins, don't move this LPAR, else we'll get charged a penalty from this vendor because it can't be moved. You can disable that LPAR to be moved. That's a per partition setting. So you only have one partition that can't be moved. Just set that one, and all the others can still be moved. That's all this chart is here. It's just telling that you can disable it. And it's on the general properties of the partition. Oh, there it is right there, disable migration. So there's the general properties of a partition. You want to maintain affinity, so this option does exist. I would like you to send me an email if you think you want to use it, but I want to explain a few pieces about that. But if you want to move an LPAR, and it's really important, and you want to make sure when it gets to its destination it has the same or better affinity, you can use this affinity option on the HMC command line. And then it will, when you get ready to move it, it will say, hey, I can give you the same affinity score or better, and it will move it. If the affinity score on the new server is less than its current affinity score, it will say I can't move it because you want me to have as good or better affinity. So once again, there's a little article here and there about that, or contact me.
Hey, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to take you back a screen or two to the licensing issue. I mean, Oracle is the big one. Can you say a couple of things about the Oracle license and LPM?
So Oracle has gotten to be pretty mean about this whole situation. We used to be able to LPM Oracle LPARs all the time, even as close as 6-7 years ago, no issue. Your license for that one Oracle is fine to move to another server. They've really gotten pretty strict about it now. So most customers just have to do enterprise licensing for Oracle, because when you're LPMing an LPAR, Oracle thinks it's running in both spots and charges you double the licenses. So Oracle is a problem. Most customers have to work with Oracle to handle their particular customer situation with their licenses. So, I mean, Oracle and SAP and SAP HANA are some of our heaviest workloads, and they LPM them all the time, but you'll have to work with your Oracle rep to make sure you're within the law of the land for that particular contract that you've signed with that particular Oracle rep. So they used to be much better about that.
Right. If you don't have an enterprise license and you need to disable in order to be in the contract, there are things you can do to disable LPM.
That's right. You click on this thing right here, disable migration, and that LPAR won't be LPMable. And if on the previous chart, remember we maintain the audit trail, so you'll know when this is set. So if Oracle does want to challenge you on it, the RSys log has that information in it, and you can give them the RSys log, and hopefully they won't penalize you too bad, depending on your relationship with your Oracle rep. So yeah,
Thanks, Bob.
It's not normally Oracle that most people have to LPM the Oracle, so they've worked with the Oracle rep to get the license terms adjusted. It's more like some of these other smaller ISVs that they don't want to mess with you at all, and so it's not normally an Oracle LPAR that's disabled. It's normally some other ISV. Data compression now exists. I'm not going to talk about it. It's done by default now. It does help you on slower networks. Data compression gives you better performance on high-speed networks. You don't get hardly any better performance than before. So I'm not going to belabor that. That's in there. You can now LPM it used to be when you started an LPM from one server to another one on the HMC, you couldn't start an LPM from a different set of servers. Now you can. So that's what this talks about. And secure LPM is on all 930 and higher firmware levels. So the low-end machines now do encryption and decompression for all their LPM traffic on your Power 9s. There's a new option if you do command line stuff to see all the steps of a migration command, and you use minus steps attribute at the top. And there's a few other things here about the remote restart that I'm going to skip because I'm running behind on my charts. One last thing I want to talk about LPM. Well, it's not quite the last thing. If you're going to do an LPM, you can go out to the flirt tool and say where I'm coming from and where I'm going to, and it'll tell you if you need to put any PTFs on based on your environment. So this is very important, especially if you're going from P7 to P9, run the flirt tool and see if you have to get some stuff updated before you do LPM to your P9s. Normally P8 to P9 is not too big of a deal, but definitely if you're skipping a generation, use the flirt tool for some of your LPARs to make sure you got everything covered. And the report is huge. I couldn't even shrink the report down. The report's so big, but run that FLIRT report and see if you have anything to fix. We've already talked about all this stuff. I was going to summarize this, but time is short. I want to talk about remote restart now. Remote restart, once again, your server's on fire. There is no GUI to do remote restart. You have to use the RR start LPAR command from the HMC command line, and it has a man page. There's 26 help pages. You have so many options to do so many things with the remote restart command, just like you have with the migration command. But here's an example. Some customers do want to do a remote restart, and they do want to be on a specific NPIV mapping. And this is this would be the command that you would issue to put it into Oracle pool, put it into Oracle LPAR, and you want to have the same, you want to be on some high-speed adapters for your LUN traffic. You would have a command line like this at the bottom. So you're going to have to become a command line expert for remote restart. There's no GUI for that. The other problem that happens with remote restart, well, I think it's really, I don't like that we don't give you a GUI for it. Another thing I don't like about it is that you have this remote restart state here. That state can go stale, and you don't know it. You have 1,000 LPARs that you set remote restart on. How do you know every day if one of your 1,000 LPARs has gone stale? And now you can't do remote restart. Or you could maybe do remote restart, but you're going to have to do something unusual to get it to work. It's just better to always have fresh data stored on the HMC. So you want to make sure that you check your remote restart status daily through some scripting or something like that to make sure an important LPAR that you need to be remote restartable doesn't go stale. And then if you would have an outage, you can LPM it or remote restart it. So that's what this is. If this is stale, you click on that circle there, those circle arrows, and it will refresh the data. If you want to use the command line, this is how you do the command line. You say, hey, show me all my LPARs on this frame called Kurt. Look for the name, and if it's remote restartable, and if it's remote restartable capable. And you can see here on this frame, I have one that's remote restartable, one that's got an invalid state, another one's got a partial update, and so another one's got a local storage update failed. So all three of those are not very healthy. You would want to refresh those if you could. And, you know, the good news is if you have those states, you can run this refdev command here to refresh it. But if that still doesn't refresh it right, or you don't catch it, or you have an outage, you can add this use current data override to the remote restart command. And see, I haven't shown them blue here. That's the same command from the previous page, but I've added this -- use current data. And so this is where the HMC will say, I don't know if I have the right data, but the customer told me use whatever data I have stored on the HMC because I really needed this LPAR up and running. And 99.9% of the time, nothing has changed in your data. You don't constantly add virtual fiber channel adapters or remove virtual SCSI adapters and change a bunch of stuff in a partition. Just for some reason, we think we've gone stale, but we haven't gone stale. You haven't touched that partition in 5 years. And so whatever was stored on that HMC 3 years ago is still valid to do your remote restart today. So just remember, you'll have to use this current data override if you have a bad status and you're using remote restart. There also is a test option. So now you can remote restart inactive LPARs. You can do that remote restart -- test, and you can move it to another frame. There's also in the middle, you can skip the power on. By default, when you remote restart, it powers on the LPAR. That's still the default behavior. But now you say, don't power it on. I'll power them on in the order I want to. And also another new thing is you can change your CPU, memory, and processors and virtual processors on the command line. So once you run remote restart LPAR command, add in these values here, and you can get a different configuration on your LPAR when you restart it. This is great. Let's say you had a frame that had 50 LPARs in it or 50 CPUs in it, and it died. You want to restart everything, but you only had 30 CPUs somewhere else. You can reduce all the CPUs down by 40%. You can fit 50 into 30, and then you can restart everything. So this is important for some customers that don't have a lot of free space everywhere. Okay, sometimes you do remote restart validate, and you get an error. You go, oh my gosh, is this an error? Well, it's not really an error because it's telling you that you sort of had an error, but maybe you don't. And if you do that, you can run the nigger command, the LPM command right below it for this option, and if it succeeds, that means your remote restart's okay. So do a remote restart -o validate on an up and running partition. You get this error. Do the LPM nigger command with this option, this LUN validation, and if it passes, you're actually remote restartable. So this is when an error is sort of a false positive or a false negative, it's really okay to LPM or remote restart on it. So use these two commands to double check yourself. This is just saying you can start. You can ask the HMC what are my available slots on the destination for a virtual fiber channel and other things. I put that thing in here. I'm sort of dubious of why they gave this command to us, but they did. I don't use this command. Here's a couple of important hints. You want to enable inactive source storage. Every customer I talk to, I tell them this, and a lot of them have not enabled this. On your frame setting, this is not a VIOS setting, this is not an LPAR setting. This is a frame setting. They allow migration with inactive source storage VIOS. Then if one of your VIOSs crashes, you can still do LPM. You don't have that box checked, and one of your VIOSs crashes, you cannot do LPM, and you are stuck. You cannot check this after you have a problem. You have to check this before you have a problem. I actually did an informal poll out on, here's the commands to do it if you don't do it from the GUI. I did an informal poll on my Twitter account, and half the people had not set that. Now, I only had 10 votes, but I talked to a lot of customers, and almost every customer I talked to has never set this. 9 out of 10 customers have not set that. Please set that. Another thing is there's the ability for the HMC to automatically collect debug information for you. There's a page for it out there. I did another informal poll, and we only had 30% of the people knew about this, and 70% didn't. Here's a link to it. Look it up. Enable this. If you do have an error with LPM, this might make your data collection a lot easier. Now, the LPM automation tool. So I haven't bored you guys with my tool. I'm going to spend the last 14 minutes of this presentation about the tool. And as Joe said, this tool is no longer free. 400 customers got it for free. The last 150 customers have had to pay for it because we've added a lot of new features to it. So we just talked about a lot of stuff on this last page, on these last 59 pages. Almost everything we've talked about on those last 59 pages are available through this tool with a GUI, and you don't have to become a command line expert. So some of the features are on the HMC GUI, not very many. Some are on the HMC command line, and then there's some features that are built into the tool that are even a superset of the HMC command line. And I have a chart for this. So we talked about MSP pairing. You can do that. We'll just look at this real quick. The first chart says MSP pairing. You can do that from the HMC GUI. You can do that from the HMC command line. You can do it from my tool. Remember, if you have more than one IP address in a VIOS, you need to use MSP pairing. So you can do it all three places. Now, if you need to do your VIOS mapping, you can do that from the GUI. That pops up, shows you that if you had multiple VIOSs and you have virtual fiber channel adapters, you want your production LPAR to go on the production VIOS and your non-prod to go on non-prod. That's available through the GUI and the HMC command line and the tool. But the next thing is not available from the GUI, and customers like this third item. I want to have a particular virtual fiber channel on a particular FCS port. This is one of my most important LPARs in my system. I don't want the HMC to put me on an FCS port that I don't like. I have an FCS port that I think that I've dedicated to this most important partition. No one else just uses FCS port but me. When you do an LPM, put me on that FCS port. You cannot do that from the HMC GUI. You can do it from the command line, and you can do it from the tool. Setting a default MSP, that's only capable from the LPM tool. Everything else all other features have to go through a ping test at least once. So through the tool, you skip those ping tests. You have a lot of IP addresses in your VIOS, you need this feature. LUN validation. Once again, LUN validation, this is where you're not sure your SAN team did your virtual fiber channel mappings correctly. You want to check it. You can do it from the HMC command line, and you can do it from the tool. You cannot do that from the GUI. We didn't talk about vSwitch names. Let's go to the next one. Concurrency performance levels. This is where you have a big 100 gigabit MSP pipe or a 40 gigabit MSP pipe. You want to use multiple threads to move this LPAR, but you want to move as fast as possible. Only, again, available from HMC command line or from the tool. So this has a whole bunch of things on it that are available from the tool that you can eventually figure out how to use the HMC command line for. And as you can see, only 2 of them are available from the GUI. Everything else is all done by the tool, because I made this chart, and there's I want to highlight what I can do and why they're important. And so, but a lot of this other stuff you can't. And Joe, with that, I'm going to just show them one more chart. Here's the two more charts. Here's that MSP chart from the HMC. Remember you had a lot of IP addresses? When you click MSP pairings, this pops up. And so this is how we change your MSP pairings from the HMC GUI, so definitely do that. And then I want to just show what the tool looks like. 2 more charts. The tool can be installed on AIX and Windows and Linux and System I platforms. It's a single package. It contains everything it needs to run. It takes 30 seconds to install it. And there's a demo version available if you want to talk to me about that. There's my email. And this is sort of what it looks like. And I will stop and allow questions now, Joe. I don't want to take everybody up to the end of the thing. So are we got any other questions people want to ask?
Oh, Bob, we got so many questions. I've tried to keep up with some of them, but I haven't done really that good of a job on them because there are a lot. Okay. And so I'm going to, as I look through here, why don't I, and you can pop them up if you want, but I'll, there was a question on, several people asked the difference between SRR and just inactive partition mobility. Right. And I know there's some difference there that maybe you can talk to. Okay.
So inactive partition mobility and SSR are almost exactly the same, except that SSR can be done when the system is on fire in the street. But from the standpoint of a customer, what the end result is the same. You have a partition that is powered off, and you move it to another frame, and you can activate it whenever you want to. So you could sort of think of inactive is and SSR are the same, except that you can't do inactive when the frame is on fire. You have to do SSR when the frame is on fire. So theoretically, you could sort of say inactive and the frame on fire could have defaulted to the one thing, but we made 2 different products out of it. So, but yeah, to the end user, there is one other difference I didn't talk about. When you do a remote restart and you move something over to another frame, when that frame comes back up, that frame that's on fire comes back up, it'll go ahead and deletes that partition off there. So when you did inactive, the partition got deleted when you did inactive LPM. With SSR, we restart it, and we don't delete that old LPAR until the frame comes back up, after the frame on fire comes back up. But that's a minor difference to you, the end user. You wouldn't even notice that. So, yeah, there's nothing different there for the most part.
Okay. Can you you mentioned the tool, and then we said it's a paid tool, Bob, but I don't recall that we went into actually how somebody gets that tool, what they have to do, how much it costs.
You buy it from Lab Services. You buy it from Lab Services, and you contact me, and different regions of the world have different prices, but it's over $10,000 for the tool, and it's $2,000 or more per year for maintenance. And with maintenance, that means you get support for the tool. I've had 550 customers over the years. I don't think that customers have found 5 problems with the tools in 5 years. They have a lot of usage questions, and I help every customer with all their usage questions. So They have a direct line to me, the developer, on any problems they run into and support. And they get new versions of the tool for free as long as they're under maintenance. Once they go off maintenance, they don't get the new versions anymore. So
as I recall, when you get it, the 10,000 is, and maybe this has changed, but that means somebody, it's not, okay, here's the tool, but it's somebody going, helping them get it set up or teaching them how to use it and such.
Oh,
is that still
that's
the
a good
case?
point. Yeah, so that's a good point, Joe. So if you already had the old version of the tool, no one comes back on site. It's pretty easy for you to learn it. If you've never had the tool, we do want to train you in it. And you can use power to cloud rewards or tip dollars. All sorts of blue dollars can be used for the training. So most customers who get training don't pay any cash. They just use these, rewards points, frequent flyer miles from IBM, so to speak, to get it. So very rarely does a customer actually pay for us to come on site because IBM has all these different frequent flyer point systems. So, but yes, if you've never had it before, we want to be there for about a day and a half to teach you.
Right, but the tool itself isn't included in the Power Cloud rewards, though, right? Just the training for it.
No, the training is the on-site training is included with Power to Clouds, but the tool is not. The tool that 10,000 or more and the 2,000 per year or more, depending on your region and all that, is green. That's green dollars. You actually have to give some IBMer some money. Okay.
And the SSR, you talked about setting up and getting all the things set up. Somebody asked a question of, when I get all this SSR stuff set up on my system, if I do an HMC scan, does any of that show up in my HMC scan?
Ooh, I don't know if we have SSR fields in HMC Scanner or not. There are so many different panels in there. That would be a nice thing. Perhaps they should include both that it's enabled and that it's in the proper state. If it's not in there, I don't know. I know HMC Scanner. I haven't looked for that recently, but that would be a great addition. Show me which ones that have an invalid state. That's a great idea.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that HMC Scanner.
There were some questions in Power VC and LPM.
Perfect.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about how Power VC uses that.
Okay. So Power VC does LPM automatically for you, especially if you want to do workload balancing or maintenance. Now, the issue that has been with Power VC in the past was that if you did maintenance and everything got moved, you couldn't move those things back to that same frame. So some customers like to have a lot of control over where each LPAR is on a frame. It was sort of hard to force that in Power VC without going through. You had to do it yourself through the GUI. They now in Power VC do have a concept of a home node, so that if you get bumped off because you're doing maintenance, you go into maintenance mode, they know your home node was frame A, and then once frame A comes off of maintenance mode, it will automatically start moving you back to your home node. So Power VC has added a feature to get you back to where you came from maintenance mode. It doesn't allow you to choose SCS ports and all this other stuff, and you can't choose your MSPs. And so I don't understand quite why they don't let you choose your MSPs, because like I said, it's all about the MSP network. That is your main performance thing. I don't think they support concurrency level either, which if you have a 100 gigabit network, you need to use that concurrency level of 1 to use all those threads. So Power VC has added a little bit as far as maintenance mode going away and coming back, but they don't still allow you to do all these other mappings and choose your networks and all that kind of stuff, which hopefully they'll get that added in.
Okay. Quickie here, I took a guess at it. I think I got it, but how many LPRs can you move at one time?
So you can do HMC supports 16, 8 per VLS, up to 2 VLS's worth.
Okay.
So the sweet spot is 8. To do 16, you got to make sure you set up all your different MSPs properly and all that. And the tool also allows you to group stuff where you can say, I want to do 8 at one time, I want to do 2 at a different time, and put them all into one plan. and say I'm going to do these first 3 web apps with these web servers first, then I'll do an Oracle database second, then I'll start another 3 or 4, workload balancers, and I'll do, the SAP HANA in a different group, and you can change all your concurrency levels and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the HMC, just base function is 8 at a time, 16 at a time from the HMC.
For max, okay.
You have to bring up the GUI. You bring up the GUI 16 times and hit go, 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 go.
Okay.
16 times, and it'll do 16 of them.
Okay. If I have tape that is connected via NPIV, can I still LPM that partition?
So you have virtual tape libraries and you have tapes. System I customers are finding it's better to get rid of the virtual tape library and then do the LPM. It sort of depends on your environment and what the status of the tapes are. The tapes are also a big problem for remote restart because remote restart has to be able to do an LPM validate, and if you have a virtual tape and LPM validate fails, then your SSR validate will fail, and you won't be able to recover from you won't be able to do a remote restart if you have this tape device in. So, and a lot of customers in VIOS also have just this virtual optical set up all the time, and virtual optical breaks things too. So, those are things to be considered, and that breaks stuff. That can easily break stuff, and you won't be able to do what you want to do. If it's LPM, you just bury off the tape library and you keep on going. But if it's remote restart, you're dead. You don't have what you want or need. So that's a problem, yes.
Okay. Well, so we're at the end of our time here, and I'm sorry, everybody, that if I didn't get to your question. I know there were a lot of questions there, and we just didn't able to get to them. So I apologize. If you really have a pressing question, feel free to send it via email. If you send it to me, I'll forward it to Bob, or you can send it directly to Bob. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining. Please fill out the survey for as much as you can. I think there's some new stuff in there this month. I tried to do an NPS thing. So try and fill out the survey. I'd really appreciate that. And Bob, thanks so much for doing this. We had a lot of people on here today. I think it's a very interesting topic for a lot of people, and you did such a great job covering it. And I think the tool is, like you say, a lot of people use it and find it useful, and I think people need to hear about it. So I really appreciate that.
Well, yeah, once again, everyone, thank you so much. And just drop me an email if you have some questions. I have lots of time on my hands right now, so I can help you out a lot, maybe.
Okay. And everybody be safe out there. Be healthy, and take care. All right. So long.
Bye. So, Joe, do I need to stay on, or should I go ahead and drop? Do you have any final comments?
No, let me. I'll end things here in a minute. So you can get off, Bob. But I'm just gonna save some stuff and then I'll end it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Have a nice day, Joe.
Yeah. Goodbye.